new episode of your program Out of the Box. A wolf, or wolves, is a name that usually strikes fear in the hearts of people. Because when you say a wolf or wolves, we usually think of ferocious predators. And these predators are known to be moving in a pack. And this pack spreads its howls everywhere, striking fear in the hearts of people. You might even go as far as to think of a werewolf, the fictional creature. But as I said, like when we usually think of a wolf, we think of a pack because it's a social animal that thrives with the group. But today, we'll shed light on a very different kind of wolf, a lone wolf, a solitary wolf. So what is the definition of this term, a lone wolf? And is this only for wolves, or can humans borrow this style of life? To shed more light on this, I'm really delighted to be accompanied by Imad Barsoum, the writer and the thinker. Imad Barsoum, hello and welcome to the program.
Hi, Mohammed. Hello, how are you? And thank you for always giving the chance to share with you this magnificent show of yours, the Out of the Box. And I'm always delighted to be with you.
The pleasure is always mutual. I'm really always delighted to have you with me as well.
Thank you.
So to start off, Imad, like if you can shed some light on like your personal or general connotations of the word, like when you hear wolf or like lone wolf specifically, when you would hear first lone wolves, what kind of connotations would come to your mind, positive or negative?
Actually, the lone wolf word itself, let's start at the beginning. Why people emphasize the word the lone wolf? Because wolves are known to be living together in packs. And there is seldom cases when the wolf is going roaming by itself,
Mhm.
hunting or looking for food, because they hunt together, they live together, they defend each other, they defend their cubs too. So having a lone wolf, that is abnormal, actually out of the norm of the science of zoology.
Mhm.
And that's what we used to define someone who is acting solely or in solitude or away from the pack, which is the humans as well. They live in pack. That's when we use the word lone wolf for humans. But wolf itself, it might, yes, sound scary, as you said earlier. However, sometimes also wolves shows about when they hunt together, it's cooperation. So same thing, the primitive man started to hunt together in packs as well. That makes the hunting more effective. Because if you see the world of animals, you see that the wolves, they hunt in its strategy. They surround their prey and they start to attack it slowly until they get it. And same thing when the mankind started to hunt for animals, they used the same technique of getting together, surround on a half circle to attack the animal they want to hunt, a buffalo or a deer. So lone wolf is the extraordinary, is not the norm. And that's why we are always talking about something unusual or person who's acting unusual as a lone wolf.
So you see a parallel line. You see you see that there's sort of an overlap actually between the human and wolf worlds. So both creatures would thrive with groups. They need a group, and a wolf is a omnivore, is meat eating, but I'm sorry, is a carnivore. But humans are omnivores, so they eat both. So they also hunt for meat.
Yeah,
So when they hunt as well, like wolves as omnivores, they would use a similar strategy. And
indeed. Yes.
if we talk about humans now, so a lone wolf, um, when we resort to this term, what characteristic of the wolf are we talking about? Because a wolf is a predator, a ferocious predator. It's a strong animal. It's somehow a fast animal. It uses strategy. It's courageous as well. So what are we referring to? Are we referring to all the characteristics of the wolf or one in specific?
As you said, the wolf is a unique animal as well in many things, also in intelligence.
Mhm.
So wolves are, that's why sometimes we call people who are very sharp, they say they act as wolves as well, because they have this kind of strategy or tactics in thinking
Mm.
which allow the animal to hunt successfully
Yeah.
without just running after a prey and without success or for catching it. So human beings as well, if we call them a lone wolf or a lone person acting on his own or her own, we have here a big dilemma actually, because the reason why a person could be acting like a lone wolf could be related to so many reasons, social, psychological, um, uh, many other factors that we don't know about, as about maybe pathological as well, medical cases, and some of them, because of they are more advanced in the way they think, they consider themselves out of this pack. In other words, I would say that a lone wolf, or which a human being who's considered as a lone wolf, could be either the extreme right or the extreme left of being so good or so bad. And a quick example, there are terrorist attacks made by lone terrorists or lone wolves terrorists,
Mm.
and the media call them lone wolf. So
Yes.
somebody who would carry on a terrorist attack on someone, assassination or bombing by
Mm.
himself, without having affiliation to any group of terrorists or any unknown organization even. Same thing, they will find also a scientist who is extremely intelligent or very advanced in his field, and he's acting on his own as a lone wolf as well. And
Usually
between
scientists
those
are
two,
known, like scientists or like artists are known to be eccentric. They have their like
indeed,
wayward behavior out of the norm usually.
yes, and that's why you find a very wide spectrum
Mm.
between the very negative lone wolf who's a terrorist, or the very intellectual and scientific mind lone wolf who is one of those scientists that you call eccentric, but they are really the positive way because they bring to humanity lots of discoveries and lots of innovations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
So, but within this wide range or this wide spectrum, you have lots of cases that we can consider lone wolves in mild ways or moderate ways. And those ones actually represent the majority of lone wolves that we might talk
Okay.
about today, especially with when related to many psychological, I'm sorry, social changes and historical changes as well, which affects human beings to tend to be more lone wolves, as of course, as we will see later on when we talk about the reasons why this happened as well.
So yeah, since the dawn of humanity actually, and if we talk about like school of Athens, school of philosophy, if we talk about Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, etc., until the modern times, usually most of these thinkers lived usually a very solitary life, like totally secluded from, the daily hustle and bustle. Like usually they're away from the masses, the multitude of people. So do you think that being a lone wolf is is a personal choice, or is it sometimes induced? Like, is it sometimes something that is imposed on you? Something that, like, would you call a marginalized person a lone wolf? Somebody who's been cast out by the group, or does it have to be a personal choice for you to be called a lone wolf?
I would first, if you go back to the philosophers of Athens and the dawn of philosophy started there, and why some philosophers, or most of them, they prefer to live in solitude or in their isolation of the others. And I would attribute this to their ego. First of
Mhm.
all, some of them, their ego is so high, or maybe they have high confidence that the way they think is not applicable to the others around them, or they look from a high position the others surround them. So that's why they prefer to live in their own life,
Mhm.
solitude, because they are higher in thinking, higher in knowledge, maybe. But someone who chooses to be living in solitude as a lone wolf, yes, it is. It's many occasions it is a choice made by so many reasons. Sometimes we can see it also psychological effect. Someone who would be bullied in his childhood at school and being bullied so much without support from family or from friends, he would tend to be more lonely when he grows. And when he is going into real life, he would not have friends because of his problem that happened in his childhood. So I would be rather tending to say that lone wolf is a choice. unless it is caused by some kind of psychological issues, which some conditions like the autism might cause this, but this is out of our discussion because this is more specialized. However, with our course of discussion, I believe that the lone wolf is a choice made by people who are capable of making a different choice as well.
Okay, so if you choose to be a lone wolf, what are the advantages or the pros of being a lone wolf, and are there any disadvantages to that?
Personally, I don't see any advantage of being a lone wolf because, as we said earlier, mankind, Homo sapiens, human beings, are social animals. And we live in packs, we live in groups, we live in social life. We need a family, we need friends, we need community, we need society, we need a country. So, in that respect, this is the thing we need, we look for, and we strive to have. But choosing the opposite is the abnormal attitude, because if I choose to be lonely, then I am giving away my instinct or my basic needs for being a human being belonging to a society.
Mhm.
Even if you look at for example, the Maslow pyramid, the second need for human beings after the basic needs is belonging. And here, belonging, he meant that human beings want to have a group of people to relate to. So I can tell you one day, oh, my brother did so and so, my daughter did so and so,
Mhm.
or I visited my grandfather, or I'm in love with someone. All these things called as social activities and would make us away from being lone wolves. But then, if you go to those who choose to be lone wolves, they are they have something that could really make them different than the norm, as we said earlier. And again, could be their ego, could be their self-centric. Um, I wouldn't say narcissism because narcissists like to be in the spot, so they are not narcissists. And but mostly they feel that they are different in many ways. And again, as a choice, that's something could be discussed with them as well. Why they choose to be lonely, why they want to separate from the herd or from the pack. That's something we have to go to some psychiatrists to answer. But the people I met in my life as lone wolves, they made their choice because of social reasons mainly, feeling that they are not accepted, their own perception, not that it's a true fact, that they are not accepted by the society around them for physical appearance, for they are not capable of express their emotions like others,
Mhm.
or maybe also some. I have met those people in life who were rejected by, let's say, someone had a crush on a girl and he was rejected at that
Mhm.
time. And then maybe second time, they tend to be more lone wolves because they think they are expelled by the pack,
Okay.
which it
Okay.
happens in the animal kingdom as well. Sometimes animals, when they are sick, the others know that this one is sick, they start to expel him from the pack. And it happens in many species as well. So could be a tendency for that.
So I want to stop here for a while because you opened really a Pandora box here, and it's like it's a can of worms here actually. So and this topic is all like this really, like a lone wolf. So you talked about Maslow's pyramid, and
Yes.
so it talks about the different needs of humans, but we as humans, we have three brains. We have the reptilian brain, the limbic brain, and then the neocortex. So the reptilian brain is like fight or flight. It's like sex, the basic instincts, basically. And then the limbic system is like for mammalians or primates, usually mammals and primates, who have a sense of family, of a pack, and so on. But how about the neocortex? Like, wouldn't the neocortex, like speech and philosophy and contemplating and pondering, these are very special things, special gifts for humans only.
Yeah, but this is,
Wouldn't this be a reason for becoming a lone wolf? Like, I'm trying to see it from a different perspective.
yeah,
So you said like humans will definitely need to satisfy the social part, but how about the human part? The social part is something they share with other mammals. But how about the human part? Like, if I cannot contemplate, if I cannot ponder, if I cannot have an insight with the group, if the group I'm dealing with, or the masses, or the surroundings are not up to that, and you're always disappointed in that, and they don't understand that, wouldn't that be something that might really drive you to opt out, to say, no, I don't want to be part of this. I want to be part of a more superior kind of life.
Well, that goes in line with what we said earlier, especially that you mentioned the Maslow pyramid. If you look at the higher levels of the Maslow pyramid, it's self-esteem and self-actualization. Actually, those two are related more to people who would like to excel in their world of knowledge, innovations, thinking, music, art, whatever you call it. It's kind of to be higher than the others, which in order to reach this level of self-actualization and self-esteem, they need to be more on their own so they can focus on their targets, or again, as we said earlier, they think they are different. But what makes us confident about that, those who are lone wolves are really in this stage of self-actualization and self-esteem, that most of them, they are brilliant. And actually, they are even more brilliant than surroundings. I'll give an example of if you remember the story of this person who was called by the media the Unibomber. It was as a person who used to send bombs in mail over the United States and
Yes.
kill people. Was bombing their mail. And it took them 20 years to catch him. And he was living in a cottage by himself in the woods. For 20 years, he's acting like this, no interaction with anyone, no family, no life. But to deceive the FBI and deceive the whole police of the country for 20 years, he must be brilliant.
So
But he
you
made it on
think
his
being a
own.
lone wolf might make you more resourceful as well? Like might help you to improvise more and think more out of the box if you're alone.
Definitely.
Mhm.
Definitely. If we take a person who lives in a cottage by himself who chose to do this, I'm sure he would be very resourceful to survive. So he has to hunt for his food. He has to make wood for warming up. In the summer, he has to make some kind of protection from the insects and reptiles. So
Mhm.
all these things together, because these defense mechanism that we have it's more easier to get through the pack. So if I'm living in a society will provide me with the food, with the shelter, with the protection, and we live in dwelling zones where no wild animals will be there as well. But somebody who chose to go away from this life and live in solitude, then he must be very resourceful and smart as well at the same time, or his intelligence is higher than the normal or the standard level of intelligence to enable him to survive. And that's why, again, to the Maslow pyramid and the top two of the pyramid, the self-esteem, self-actualization, yes, those people are definitely different in a positive way, I would say. So they can create something more than the others surrounding them, and also they can reach higher levels of knowledge in some fields, even it's in a field that is not their own domain. So, for
Mhm.
example, a doctor, a surgeon, great surgeon, could be one day a big author or a musician or a poet because that's what made him that way. And maybe this requires some isolation from the society or his medical field as a doctor or surgeon to get to this level of knowledge or excelling in art.
So again, it's unfortunately part of humanity. Like since the dawn of humanity, again, we've heard like countless uh, forms of divisive rhetoric. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, this divisive rhetoric increases by the day. And it's usually my way or the highway. Like people usually
Yes.
tend to go to the far ends of the spectrum. So it's either black or white. It's ultraviolet or infrared. You cannot be within. You cannot be, within the spectrum. You cannot be, like in the middle side. And again, so some people might say that people with a principle, they can never settle for the middle ground every time, or they cannot just go with the pack. And if you have principles, if you have ethics, if you have morals, then definitely you cannot stand with one side indefinitely. You cannot, because humans tend to live in perpetual anguish, and
Yeah.
always something new arises. And with every new incident, you need to take a decision. So if you're a sane human, you cannot just go along with the group. But where most people tend to choose one side or one end of the spectrum, do you think it has become part and parcel of humanity and dignity today to become a lone wolf if you want to preserve your ethics, your morals, and values?
Actually, that's a very interesting point because once we mention ethics and principles and values here, that opens a big question about what kind of ethics that with a certain job in being extrovert that makes you. For example, I will give you two examples that are very common in the comprehension of the human mind, especially in the Western world. The lawyer and the salesperson. The salesperson and the lawyer, both of them are very extrovert and they are very social and they're very smart at the same time. And they can never be lone wolves. But on the other side, you will find someone like an artist or who creates paintings or a great poet. And still, he's creator and also smart. He cannot perform his art without being in isolation. But ethics is something a big issue because I would contribute. You're right about it because something came to my mind just now. Monks, the monks, they choose a solitude life of isolation. They
Yes.
leave the civilization and live in monasteries, and nuns as well, both the nuns or monks. What they choose is that they want to get away from the world of sins, according to them, world of vice, and all these things that might deviate them from the mission of life, which is to the eternity. So they choose their own isolation by themselves. And this is a very good example of what you said about that ethics and principles would drive people to live in isolation. Or they go and find this in the monastery, they find the haven for them, for their souls, rest. Do we agree or disagree? That's a different topic here, but however,
Yes.
that's a very good example of the ethical drive or for isolation.
So
And
you
and
talked
that's what,
about, yeah. Yeah, please go ahead. I'm
sorry, and that's completely different from those the creators of art, musicians, poets, and artists and painters. Those live in isolation, yes, but they are far from being living in monastery because they
sorry.
need to live still close to the world so they can have reflection of the real life on their art and creation. Maybe they want to have their own atelier where they can draw their paintings, but still they have to listen to news. They have to see, they go to buy stuff from the market so they can talk to people, see a smile of a young boy or girl, baby, so they can draw it, give them inspiration. So sunshine, the moon, all these things. But those who live in the monasteries, they do not enjoy or even feel these things around them because for them it's the earth life. It's not for
Mhm.
eternity. It just, on the contrary, it hinders them from reaching the eternity and the afterlife, of course.
So talking about monks, nuns, abbots, like abbesses and like, monasteries and abbeys and all that. Yeah, like they live a solitary life. They dedicate all their life to the service of God, and they would sort of choose to stay in their cell, stay inside the monastery. Maybe they can walk sometimes in nature as well, but they wouldn't like it's a life of celibacy. It's a life of, like they would stay away from all kinds of permanent human interaction, like marriage and whatnot. But they might live in a physical cell that they choose to be in. But can you create your own cell? Like, does it have to be a physical cell? Like, I can still live with the people, but can I create my own cell? Or let's not say cell, let's create a sieve or a filter.
Yes, I would create my own, I call it my own bubble. or
Mm-hmm.
my own world that I want to live in. For example, I feel that because me, just as an example, of course, that I read more books than you, Muhammad, for instance. And so I think myself is different than you. And that's why I cannot talk to people, normal people that who didn't
I
read enough
understand
like
this.
me. I
Absolutely.
have more knowledge. So I started to isolate myself, my own world, my own bubble. I keep my knowledge for myself. I don't want to share it because I think, mistakenly think that the listeners will not understand what I'm talking about, especially when we talk about philosophy and literature and that kind of human sciences. So yes, this we create our own bubble, yet we are living in a society. I might be living with my family in my home, but I prefer not to see friends. I hope not to talk to anybody at work. I want to come back home, just be in my library or my study room and just be indulged in my knowledge and books. I don't want to share it. And this also would lead to something else. By slowly, this might lead me to be an introvert person. And even I would not talk to my family by time. So the children might need the father's advice in some issues. But because he is totally taken by this world he created for himself, he cannot interact with their lives and he stays away from their interests. That's why there is a crack that happens between those people who chose this isolation or solitude by themselves as lone wolves in their houses, yet their families out there needed them, but they cannot get hold of them or get their help in life. And that's the worst case, I believe, of someone who chose to be a lone wolf.
Okay, so we might have talked about the past and the present. Now let's talk a little bit about the future. With the advancement of technology and, the super information highway, with the internet and the global village and all of these different terms that were coined in, like, towards the last quarter of the 20th century. And of course, things continued in this progress in the 21st century. And with, artificial intelligence and so on and so forth. Do you think that humans, whether they like it or not, are becoming lone wolves? Is this the future of humanity, to become uh, just separate lone wolves, everybody living in his own den?
Well, that you hit a very sensitive matter, which is very even dangerous and very scary because since the isolation we lived in, we were forced to live in isolation during the COVID, and
Hmm.
then COVID is over, and now people went back to normal life. However, many found their peace in being isolated from the society.
Hmm.
So people started to prefer to work from home. And maybe I have wrote several articles about the dangers of working from home for a long time, which creates people are socially actually it's challenged as well. And I have seen cases, or I have heard about cases I've seen even in family, distant family, that during the schooling from home, after the COVID was over, the kids couldn't go back to school because they were afraid from other children and they couldn't even be treated properly. So the kids prefer to be staying home and get homeschooling. And that's very dangerous. So if you take it on the other level, a higher level of adults and workers and with the workforce, now people are looking for jobs so that they can work from home and they don't want to interact with human beings. So meetings are on phone, even without pictures sometimes, so you don't know who you're looking at. And they are completely isolated. So they buy their food from online. They do not even go to the market and buy their stuff. They watch movies there. They don't go to the movie theater. They even, if they want to date someone or talk to on the phone, they go for sites that allow dating. And even those, as I heard from people on the dating sites, they go there and they meet lots of people who are interested to meet lots of people, but no one gets any good chance because again they are afraid and worried about the others. Because if I'm talking to you behind the screen and I don't know your face or your voice even, how can I build trust in you? So people are losing trust in each other. People are getting more isolated. Fear of being exposed to society. I remember the days when, before the COVID, long time before the COVID, you go and find lots of pubs and bars and restaurants and cafes are busy, always busy. Nowadays, the number of going there is less and less because people again are isolated. Even if they go to the famous coffee shops around the city, you will find that they are sitting with their laptops or phones isolated. So no couples or no two friends, always person by herself or person by himself, their eyes on the phone, the screen of their laptop, completely isolated from the surrounding. If you talk to them, even you try to say, "Can you give me a space, please? I want to sit next to you." He would be scared of you and he would move without even looking in your eyes. This fear is created because of becoming socially challenged. It's becoming a norm now. And I see it in many new generations. Even at work, my workplace, the younger ones, whenever there is no activity at the time of the day, they are behind their phone. I try to tell them, let's talk. I want to teach you something different at work. I want to show you something different. Let's talk about your challenges at work and see how we can fix it. But they prefer to be behind their screens. And really, as you said, this is a very dangerous phenomenon now, that people by time will be isolated from each other. If we can live all our life through the screen, through the internet, buying our stuff, paying our bills, doing our work without even going outside, that would definitely cause mental and physical issues. And that is the worst kind of lone wolf by choice that I can see coming to the society.
And now, if we talk about the new generation that grew up during the time of COVID and they got used to online education, they saw their parents doing online work, uh, e-commerce, everything is online, everything is online. And we're expecting pretty soon things like holograms, and we're talking about 4D holograms, where you can even transfer the senses. So you can even not only see and hear, but you can also smell, touch, and taste. Uh, what kind of humans would they be, those lone wolves? Would they completely, like forsake all kinds of social lives?
You just pictured a very scary movie. It's a scary sci-fi movie, just what you pictured now, when people are totally detached from the world and they are just focused on the technology to give them their needs, whether food, whether entertainment, whether even entertainment. I think they will miss it because they are isolated from life. So how we can enjoy a movie, for example, about a romantic movie, for instance. If it's a romantic movie, it's played on TV, and someone who never been in this before because she or he are isolated from the world, how they could enjoy a romantic movie? How would they relate that life is so beautiful outside their walls?
Mm-hmm.
And how life is beautiful outside, to talk to people, to get into bad experiences, to have love failure and get out of relationship to get to another one. That's for example. Then food. If I'm getting all my food through the e-commerce and the groceries, even ready-made food from big restaurants, where is the enjoyment of sitting in a restaurant in a certain atmosphere, listening to some music, and lighting is nice, and the food is served in a very decent and nice way? All these things will be lost from the coming generations. And what a kind of life it would be! What a kind of life that
Someone
I
might tell
can.
you it's just virtual reality. Put on your goggles and you are there. You are in the restaurant. Put on your goggles and you are in the park, surrounded by people, but you're still sitting on your chair. Like you're a couch potato, actually.
Yes,
People,
and also you can visit the world sitting on your couch. So you can be
exactly.
on beaches in any place in the world or in the
Yes.
mountains. You can climb Mount Everest sitting on your couch.
And now with
Uh,
the new senses, you can even smell and touch.
Indeed, yes. And we were
Yes.
talking about this in the industry, many industry, that now even when they were talking about selling some items online, but people want to smell it. They are thinking about the technology one day will make you smell this perfume before you buy it. But again, why would you buy a perfume if you're not going out of your house and you're not living with anyone? So, as much as technology is making life easy, as much as it is actually killing the life itself.
Mhm.
Maybe I sound a little bit old-fashioned. However, I am very much into technology. I love technology because it makes our life easier. But there's always a limit. I need technology in everything, but I still want to be a human being. I want to come and visit you, your house. I want to bring my family, meet your family. We have dinner together. I want to go out and walk with my spouse and have my dog in my hand walk together. So these things, by time, is going to disappear, and we become like robots, or those semi-parahumans. I call it parahumans in a sci-fi movie about those who are guided by machines and guided by computers.
Or
If
like
you remember,
cyborgs, a cyborg. You're like
cyborgs, exactly. That's the word
half,
I was looking for.
half word,
And
half. Yeah.
there was one of the movies that made based on the time machine. There was one when a person, that film movie was made in the 50s, but they made it. He made this person go to the future, far in the future, and they pictured the people going walking like a herd of cattle without senses in lines, going
Yes,
out
and
to
they would
eat.
hear the horn. When they hear
The
the
horde,
horn
yes.
blows. Yeah, they're so scared.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yes,
that's what actually is happening. This movie was made maybe 50 years ago,
that's
or
the
70
H.G.
years ago.
Wells, I think, H.G. Wells time machine.
Yes, absolutely
Yeah.
right. You're right. Yes.
Yes,
One of the great movies actually, because it predicted and also it pictured the people who lived in the darkness under the ground as blind and savage. So
absolutely.
those who lived above the ground are robots or cyborgs, and those who lived under the ground in isolation are also monsters. And they were very ugly creatures and like cannibals as well.
They're
Right?
so advanced, like their cognitive abilities are so high, but
So,
their like, social and emotional abilities are nil, nothing.
no, even worse than the wolves in the pack of the wolves.
Yes,
So
yes,
we
absolutely.
are actually going into a very dark, dark tunnel of being everyone will be a lone wolf on her own or his own. And what would be the next? That there will be no reproduction of human beings, so that we will become to the edge of instinct. Not, of course, not now or 100 years, but that's the way. You are paving the way for extinction now. If you are not going to be a social creature, and
And
that's
yeah,
yeah,
um,
and that's a really sad. That's a really sad thing. It's
maybe the flip of this coin, like the another movie as well that was made in at the very end of the 20th century is The Bicentennial Man by
yeah,
Robin
yeah,
Williams. And in this movie, a robot, Robin Williams starts his life as a robot,
yes,
but
yes,
200 years later, he dies as a human. And
yes.
he chooses to transform himself from a robot to a human just for the sake of this social life, enjoying interaction,
He
self
wants.
self satisfaction, self realization.
We want to be loved and be loved. How we can achieve this basic need as well if we do not interact with human beings? I cannot love and be loved through the computer. Although some people would think this is love or relationship through
Mm,
the screen of a cell phone, but no. The human real interaction is that we walk side by side, hold hands, talk with the significant other, and maybe plan for life, maybe plan for having children or no children, doesn't matter. But it's all about human interaction with emotions and senses. And I do believe that lone wolves, they have no emotions as people who are not living in solitude.
absolutely. Mehmed, really thank you very much for this very interesting discussion and for this very fruitful, you know, brainstorming that we had together. And it was a real pleasure having you as usual. Really looking forward to having you time and again in the program. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Hamad, for this chance to elaborate on this matter. It's very enlightening and very interesting to talk. And as usual, you bring the best topics always to us and to discuss it together and for your audience.
Thank you
Thank
very
you, and
much.
thank you for your audience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And dear viewers, if we were to come to a conclusion here, like in this day and age, of course, there are a lot of pressures in people. Economic pressure, for example, is one of the reasons that might drive people to become lone wolves. It's because if I want to see my friend, we'll go somewhere. This means that we need to spend some money. If I go to someone's place or he comes to mine, or if we go out, this means we need to spend money. And we can hardly make ends meet. So I'd rather stay in my home, he stays in his, and so on and so forth with the advancements of technology. Again, there are a lot of extremism in the way people think. So sometimes if you're like it, you find it very hard to say your honest opinion, or you'll be harassed and bullied by the masses. But again, like the discussion said, like yes, you want to preserve your dignity. You want to preserve your values and ethics, but most important, you want to preserve your humanity. And humans are hardwired to be social creatures. So again, let's not take the extremes. So like if you're escaping from extremist ideas, don't become an extremist yourself. So instead of resorting to that, why not become selective? Just become selective. Have a sieve. So don't boycott humans, period, but try to be selective. And don't treat other people with animosity. Just keep a safe distance. You know, during the time of COVID, we had social distancing. So it's just keep a safe distance, but you still interact with other people. But I would limit the number of people whom I approach to come within my very, very inner circle. Because if we lose this touch, there's no difference between us and machines. And we are the creators of machines. We cannot be contained in what we made. We cannot invest our feelings in machines and in things. So let's always try to keep a balance. Selection is important, but also is humanity. Dear viewers, until we meet again, I hope you have a very pleasant time. Thank you very much for watching.